What's up, my friends, and welcome in to another edition of the All Nittany Lion Podcast here on PHLY. Thank you so much for hanging out with us once again. A pleasant week to you. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving week and is kind of back in the swing of things. But before we get into everything that we've got to talk about today, of course, as always, I want to say a pleasant hello to my buddies to my right, Adam Telefaro and Jason Cabinda. Guys, I don't know about you, but I always, after the holiday, whether it's Thanksgiving or the Christmas season or whatever it is, those first couple days back to work are like, they just feel like a totally different time zone, a different life. Monday, I wake up and I'm like, do I need this job? Am I? So, as always, guys, it's great to be with you.
Great to I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving.
The boys feeling a little heavy today, man.
Well, I'm glad you guys had a great weekend. I know Penn State had a great weekend. Ohio State did not. We'll talk all about that. We'll talk about a trip to the Big Ten title game, which Jason brought up to us about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And I went, I don't know, man. A lot has to go their way. And here we are. We're going to talk all about it. As we always do, we'll talk about the college football playoff landscape because one team in particular I think is going to burst some fans' bubbles. We'll talk about all that in the next hour here on the All Nittany Lion Podcast. But first, let's get into the what was last Saturday. It was a 44-7 win for the Penn State Nittany Lions over the Maryland Terrapins. And guys, I know James Franklin always talks about, control what you can control one at a time, and he swears that the team and he didn't know that they were going to the Big Ten title game with a win. I'm not sure if I believe him or not, but it was a weird series of events to open things up where Penn State takes the opening kick. Nick Singleton coughs up the football, which is not something that he does on the first play of the game. Maryland scores on one play later, a 21-yard touchdown pass. They're up 7-0 in the blink of an eye. And I think there was probably a collective, oh, no, from Penn State fans around the country. And all they did was respond with 44 consecutive points and an absolute dominant performance. But, guys, I'm sitting on my couch. My wife and I are sitting there. I got the baby. He's kind of in and out of sleep. And I'm like punching the air, screaming, without screaming because I'm not trying to wake him up. An inauspicious start for the team, but a ridiculously comfortable victory after that.
I don't know if you guys were at the game at all, but man, it was a really, really cold one. And I'll tell you what, from those first couple plays, Nick Singleton coughs it up. They go first offensive play, throw a touchdown. I mean, the Maryland sideline was lit. They thought they were about to come in here and ruin the day. And by the middle of the second quarter, them boys looked like they didn't want to be out there anymore. I thought it was just a really funny change of energy and very fast change of events because, like you said, Tyler, at first when that happened, we're down 0. I'm like, oh, snap. Like, big breath here. Like, come on. But, man, the boys really responded. And like you said, 44 unanswered points. It was a great game. A lot of guys got a lot of reps and got a chance to play senior night, and they finished it off with a win. So that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I think you guys both touched on everything I was thinking about. But the thing that kind of caught me is when they first – I know, JC, you were at the game. I wasn't at the game, but they do the camera from the top of the stadium. Like, man, the stadium look a little empty right now. The stadium look a little empty right now. Then the way it started out, I was like, man, this is just got bad vibes going on right now. And then, to your point, after we got through that hiccup, it, all turned out well. But I had that pit in my chest because it didn't seem like the stadium was in it. It was kind of empty, but thank God, as Coach Franklin has done this entire year, has gotten the boys ready to beat the teams that we are supposed to beat, and they handled their business. And now we're on to the things we've been talking about all season.
Nobody was trying to be out in that cold, man. When I was walking around the stadium, heading over to go to the pregame show, man, I'm looking around the tailgate scene, tailgates, parking lots looking a little, way emptier than usual. I'm like, oh, nobody's messing with this cold. And then by the time we got to the third quarter and we were really running away with it, I look over to the student section and there's not one student out there any longer. That cold was for real.
I'll tell you, man, my freshman year was 2012. And I remember coming back early for a post-Thanksgiving game. And they played, I think it was Wisconsin they played, the final game of the year. And that was the coldest game I had ever been a part of as a fan. And I get it, man. You Thanksgiving break, right? You got that week-long break. You might not be back yet. The cold, it's Maryland. And I think a lot of people didn't have the expectation, of course, that the game was going to be as impactful as it was to the season. But you're right. I said the same thing to my wife, Adam, as they did that pan shot. I was like, this place is empty. Where is everybody? But it makes a whole lot of sense, of course, after, with everything that played into it. Guys, I just want to give you a couple of numbers really quickly from the game for Maryland after the first touchdown drive, the one play, 21-yard touchdown. They had 29 yards or 29 plays, for 82 yards, which averages out to 2.8 yards per play in the rest of the first half. If you take away their last two drives of the half, which, by the way, both ended in interceptions, they averaged 0.3 yards per play. They saw 3 punts, a turnover on downs, 2 interceptions to end the first half. Head into the second half, pretty much the same thing. 3 punts, a turnover on downs, and an interception. So if you take the first touchdown drive of the game out of the way, Maryland punted 6 times, turned the ball over on downs twice, threw 3 interceptions, and went 2 for 12 on third down. Kind of a game as we all expected to happen, but after the way things transpired in the first, 15 seconds of the game, to respond that way, to come back that way, and to dominate that way, I think, it was important to kind of get this thing out of the way early to understand, all right, you're punching your ticket to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Evan.
No, I was just saying, I think that game was really emblematic of this team for the entire season. I mean, it's strong defensive performance. Drew made the correct reads, but I think it was a microcosm of the entire season in one game there. And it's just, we've talked about it every week this year, just how this team responds to adversity. And they faced it, although it was brief, they faced some adversity, first play of the game and second play of the game, and they came back and still put the beat down on these guys. So I'm so excited, and this team deserves it. I mean, to get to the Big Ten championship after all this team has been through, I couldn't be more proud of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe Coach Franklin when he said that they had no idea. I feel like that's probably I don't know how they are with the TVs in the locker room now, if they still maybe play ESPN or anything like that. But I know for a fact there's people in there that knew what was going on, or, that Ohio State game cooking and them losing, and that the fact that the reality was they were playing for the Big Ten championship. So, to be able to go out there, have the maturity to go out there and get it done, and also get it done in the fashion that we've been talking about. We talk about, the fashion in which you win or lose these games and how important it can be. And I also want to point out just the fact that, these are the implications of the restructuring of the conference being played out, right before our eyes. In this exact same scenario, even if you add these other teams to the West Side, Oregon still gets in and Ohio State still gets in, because at the end of the day, Michigan's record was 6-5, so their win doesn't really mean anything, and they beat Indiana, and we didn't get to play Indiana. So the reality is, if not for the restructuring of the conference, this would still be an Oregon-Ohio State Big Ten championship game. And I said this, Penn State will be the team that ends up benefiting the most from this restructuring of the conference, and it's cool to see that we're benefiting right now, right here in year one.
No, I didn't even think about that. That's a great point. It would have been another year of the West.
Yeah.
It's a great point. I didn't think about that.
Well, I will say, at least this time through, Oregon's a legit number one top team in the country, stars up and down their roster. Whereas in years past, you're talking about, Iowa scored 42 points all season, but here they are.
Yeah, or Wisconsin just cakewalk into the Big Ten championship game.
Right. So this is a really, really good Oregon team. And Nathan, thanks for checking in the chat. We're going to preview this game in just a second. But before we do, I wanted to dive into one guy, and I sound like a broken record because we talk about this guy every week. He just continues to move up NFL draft boards every single week with his play. But that, of course, is Abdul Carter, who I thought was a game wrecker on Saturday. And he ended up, his numbers, like, you look at the numbers and he had 6 tackles. He did have 2 sacks, but 6 tackles for the edge rusher over the course of the game. It felt to me like he was in every play, guys. Like, I felt like he was in the backfield every single play. He used an inside move. He used an outside move. He used the spin move. He used the rip move. And it was weird because it felt, and Jason, you were there, maybe you get a better sense of it. It felt to me like Mike Locksley and his staff never really made a ton of adjustments on him. It was kind of him versus a tackle, him versus a tight end. Maybe there was a running back chip, but it felt to me like Abdul Carter was in the backfield almost every play, and they kind of just let him be Abdul Carter. You know what I mean? It was kind of strange to me.
Yeah. Very surprised that they didn't have, or at least it didn't feel like they had a true game plan for Abdul. And, he had decent stats. Like you said, 6 tackles, 2 sacks. But, like, when you watch the game on tape, there are at least 9 or 10 more plays where Abdul's play specifically is what's making the play. Whether it's somebody else being able to clean it up, whether he got in the backfield and he ended up disrupting one of the pulling guards and now they couldn't get around. I mean, things of that nature. Like you said, he's just such a disruptor. He's so disruptive. And when he's playing at top energy, when he's playing, like he can't be stopped. I can't stress that enough. And he's a very unique talent, and he's definitely one of those pieces that's a chess piece where you can put him at a lot of places and he can do a lot of damage to you offensively.
Yeah, I mean, and you just think about what he does for the other guys on the defensive line. I mean, he opens things up so much more for not only the defensive line but the linebackers as well. So, I mean, really can't put into words the impact that he's had on this team and the motor that he has. I mean, if you see your best player given that type of effort, think about guys that aren't as talented on his team that are just watching him and saying, hey, if our best player can do that, I need to be given that same type of effort. So he's an effort guy. And the thing that I really have loved, and we were talking about it earlier on this season, was, the penalties. And knock on wood, I haven't seen, many of the offside penalties or the other things that we were talking about earlier on this season. It's been nothing but positive.
So I know, obviously when awards get announced, sometimes it becomes a who's the name guy. Sometimes it's a strictly looking at numbers guy. And so sometimes players get overlooked when they shouldn't. And the reason that I say that is not because of Abdul Carter. He actually is a finalist for the Nagurski Award. And the 4 finalists were announced. It's Abdul Carter. It's Michigan's Mason Graham, Texas, Judea Barron, and South Carolina, Kyle Kennard. But one guy who was not included on that list, and I think, and this kind of goes into the conversation about elite edge rushers, because Oregon has an elite edge rusher of their own in Mateo Uiagalelei, who ended up 23 tackles, but 10.5 sacks, forced 2 fumbles. He's a guy, and we'll talk more about him in the preview for Oregon specifically. He's kind of that game-wrecking defensive end. He can move all over they use him. Jason, you talked about like chess pieces. He's a movable chess piece who can kind of fit into their defensive line scheme. They'll move him around on the line. He had an incredibly athletic pick against Wisconsin to seal that game when that game was still up in the air. This is it could be a matchup of 2 of the best premier edge rushers in college football. Abdul Carter, who probably goes top 10, 15 in this year's draft. Uiagalelei is probably going to look to do the same thing in the 2026 draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be the first to say I didn't see all the Oregon games this year, but the games that I watched, he is a guy. He's a dog. I mean, he's a guy that's going to cause some havoc. And with I hope our offensive line from health wise, I'm not sure if we're getting guys healthy or if we're going to roll with what we got, but. Hey, you gotta get that ball out quick, man, because he's coming. And I'm so confident, in our. And I don't know how he is against the run. I mean, you guys could probably answer better than me, but he's the type of guy like, hey, let's test him out, run towards him, see what he's got, and we go from there. But I'm excited for this matchup, man, because I know we're biased, as I always say, but I feel like our guys got a strong shot against these boys this weekend.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we can play with absolutely anybody. I mean, we've shown that this year consistently. I think when you talk about the premier pass rushers and these 2 guys going against each other, I think, honestly, it could possibly be the most important aspect of this game, because I do fear Dillon Gabriel's capability of extending plays and how he can also truly hurt you in the run game with his legs. It's going to be a matchup of how well and what are the results of when Drew has to extend plays and what becomes of that. and what are the results of when Dillon extends plays and how Oregon's offense looks when that's happening, because that's going to occur on both sides. And in this game, on both sides, on multiple occasions, Drew's going to get flushed out of the pocket. Dillon's going to get flushed out of the pocket. Does that look like a 40-yard run for Dillon Gabriel because he scampers out of there, and a 3-yard sack for us? Or, that's the game that's going to be played offensively here. So I think that's really interesting that you bring that up, and will definitely have to be something we keep an eye on in this game.
Yeah, two excellent defensive lines in this one. Penn State's been very, very good. Oregon's numbers are gaudy defensively. A ton of sacks, rack up a ton of sacks. Again, we'll talk more about it as we get into the preview. But you're right. I think this could come down to a game in the trenches because, I think Oregon is the more explosive offense in terms of like big play capability. The Penn State's defense has been excellent all year, but you're right. The two defensive lines, I think, are going to be at a premium in this one for both sides.
Yep.
Guys, we'll dive more into that game in just a second. We have a ton to get into, so I'm not going to make you guys wait any longer. But, well, I guess I'm going to have to make you wait just a little bit longer because we have some bills to pay. So let me tell you about some of our friends here over at PHLY. And, of course, I've been telling you about my friends over at Shady Rays for a long time now because if you don't take my word for it, take 300,000 people's word for it because they are rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. They've got durable frames. And the important thing here is the crystal clear optics. They make you the perfect choice for all outdoor activities. Guys, I know the snow is coming. I struggle with the snow, especially when I'm driving. It just messes with my eyes. My Shady Rays are the best option for me while I'm driving, while I'm out shoveling, whatever the case may be. The cold weather's coming. You don't have to worry about your sunglasses, the sun reflecting off the snow or whatever. Shady Rays has you covered. And the best thing about Shady Rays is if they ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't worry about it. They have the best protection in all of eyewear. Every pair that you buy is backed by a lost or broken replacement. And if you buy them online, don't worry if you don't like them or you don't love them and you get them at home and maybe they're not exactly the fit or the feel or the style you were looking for. Don't worry about that either. You can return them worry-free or exchange for a new pair within the first 30 days. And exclusively for our listeners with the holiday season in full swing, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the holiday season. Head on over to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off your pair of polarized sunglasses. Again, can 300,000 people be wrong on a pair of sunglasses? I don't think so. So head on over to shadyrays.com and use that promo code PHLY. Let me tell you about our friends over at Ace Hardware. You know the jingle. You know about Ace. You know they're the helpful hardware folks. But did you know they're also the helpful hardware home service team? Because they will help you with your leaky pipe, or you've got an air conditioning issue, a faucet problem that's been running crazy. And that's what I've got going on right now. Can't fix my faucet in my bathroom. Don't know what's going on. We've tried a bunch of things. Might have to call our friends over at Ace. If you got a plumbing or a heating or a cooling problem, they are the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. And as I've said, you know that they're the helpful hardware folks, but they bring helpful home. The helpful that you love from the store can now be found right at your front door. So head on over to acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today. And yes, this is the All Nittany Lion Podcast here on PHLY. Tyler Zulli, Adam Talaferro, Jason Kabinda. As Penn State finishes the regular season 11-1, their only blemish was a loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes a handful of weeks ago, but they will play in the Big Ten title game in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. And it is something that hasn't happened all that frequently for Penn State over the last, decade or so. So one thing that I didn't note, by the way, this is the first matchup between these two teams in just about 30 years. The 94 Rose Bowl was the last time these two teams squared off. And that was a memorable Penn State team, a memorable season, and a memorable Rose Bowl. So it is 30 years in the making that these two teams will get back at it. Before we get into the game, I want to ask you guys, what does this mean for this Penn State team? What does it mean for their legacy? Jason, you played in a Big Ten title game. You know what this is like. What does this do for this Penn State team in particular and the legacy they'll have at the university?
Yeah, I think this is it's an opportunity to hang a banner, man. Anytime you have a banner game, that's huge. Anytime you have an opportunity to cement your legacy, to cement how special your team was, to be able to quantify all of the hard work that goes into the offseason, the winter workouts, the spring ball practices, the training camp, all of the sacrifices you guys make you get to reap the fruits and a possibility of being able to have a ring at the end of the year, which is absolutely awesome. So I'm super excited for these guys. I know a lot of these guys are also just ready to stop hearing about 2016. I think that's another thing. That's another narrative, not only the players, but Coach Franklin as well. I think Penn State has been one of the most consistent programs in college football since Coach Franklin has gotten there. And, sometimes they don't get their flowers. I know we get a lot of flack for the 10-win seasons and things of that nature, but it's not an easy thing to do. So it would be awesome to cap this year off with a ring.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I just think about, the 2016 team and like the back in the 82 team, 83 team, like those are special teams that you guys were a part of. I think of the teams when I was there, we went to one bowl game, and I was talking to Todd Kolka, he's an academic counselor at Penn State, and he was I remember he always said something that really resonated with me. It's like, we're never going to have that opportunity to be recognized. Like in 20 years from now, they're going to have that 2016 team. You guys are going to be out in the field. They're going to be celebrating that team for many, many years to come. And that's a special thing. Now, I don't even know what the guys that are playing now realize, and I hope they do, but it's an opportunity to create a legacy at Penn State.
Yeah, I think back to that 2016 team, and we've talked about how that year had come to pass, and the loss to Michigan, the rebound, the way that you guys did to rattle off the victories. And I don't know if you think about it in the moment, and as a fan, I can say this. I wonder how you guys feel about it as players. But as a fan, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, good win. And then all of a sudden, the expectations start to mount, and not only that, but you have this feel of like this could be something special, right? Where you say, hey, Trace McSorley has really arrived as a legit, college quarterback. And this defense is really putting things together. And Jason, you talked about how banged up and injured you guys were heading into that Michigan game. And as you got healthier and healthier, it was more and more apparent that you guys were a dominant defense that year.
Yeah.
And then to go beat Wisconsin the way that you did. and I think like you look back on it and you go, wow, what a season. And then you have to think about individually some of the games, or you don't think about individually some of the games at the time until you put it all, cumulatively together for the bigger picture.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of similarities, between our 2016 team and this 2024 team. And really what makes a championship team in this league is having a very capable quarterback that's having a very good running game, because that matters in December and January football. That's having and playing good, sound defense. That's having a stretch or period of games or moments during a season in which you guys had to bow up and really learn about who you are. Penn State's had that on multiple occasions. You could say USC down 2 scores on the road all the way out in LA. You could talk about the Wisconsin game and Drew going out not being able to finish the game and them having to finish the game with Bo. This team's been through adversity, and we've seen them respond. We could talk about their consistency and their ability to find ways to win. And that's what this team has done. They've done it all year long. So, they can catch as much flack as they want, but this team has a lot of the makings of championship qualities.
Yeah, man. Special team, man. Special.
All right, guys. Well, let's get into this preview of Oregon, the only undefeated team in FBS football this year, the only 12-0 team, a handful of 11-1 teams, but this is the only team that was consistently perfect all year long. Now, when I say consistently perfect, of course, I mean within their record, but their numbers are gaudy, guys. 312 points scored for 132 given up this year. They've scored 31 or more points in 10 of their 12 games this year. They averaged 35.3 points per game. They're 15th in yards per game. They're 7th in third down conversions. They have 56 red zone trips this year. And Jason, you brought up one guy in particular who kind of is the catalyst of everything, and that's Dillon Gabriel. 10th in the nation in passing yards, 10th in passing efficiency. The guy just simply doesn't turn the ball over. He's only thrown 32 interceptions in his 6 college seasons, 54-12 touchdown to interception ratio in the last 2 years. He's mature. He's a vet. He's a leader. As you mentioned earlier, has the ability to use his legs and get out of danger. He's dangerous with both his arm and his legs. I think he's been an excellent addition to this Oregon team that was already very good. But to have his presence, I think, has really been a calming factor for them. A guy that's been through the pressures before, statistically has always had a nice career. I think he's taken his game to the next level at Oregon. I mean, he was good at Oklahoma. He was good at UCF. He's been very, very good for Oregon this season.
Hey, he's a good veteran quarterback. I mean, he's seen all the looks. He's seen all the blitzes. A lot of teams have chosen pressure against him. He's made them pay. I mean, you talk about his touchdown to interception ratio. I think he's only thrown 6 picks this year. I will say, though, because they've had a ton of red zone trips, he's thrown 6 picks this year. 4 of those picks are in the red zone. So I think he struggles a little bit once those windows become a little bit tighter. The more and more I think about this Oregon team, I kind of think of them a lot like a Golden State Warriors. They're like the type of team that lives and dies by the 3. They live and die by the explosive play. If you really and you know, we've seen many moments of this year that Penn State's been a bend but don't break mentality in terms of their defense playing really sound, fundamentally sound defense. I do think that our defense can give them problems because we haven't given up a ton of explosives. We don't just let guys fly by us. We've had discipline in the back end. We challenge on the outside. So, you know, every single thing that they get is going to be earned in this game. And this might be one of those games where we just got to force Oregon into mistakes by making them consistently play perfect, which I don't know if they'll be able to pull that off against our defense.
Yeah. And, you know, Oregon, hey, they're undefeated, but they've been tested. You know, you look back at that Wisconsin game, you know, 16-13. And I remember at the beginning of the year watching them, and, you know, Idaho was beating them for a little bit. You know, I think the score ended up being 24-14. And then who was it? Boise State. You know, they beat Boise State by 3 points. Which,
by the way, looking at it now is a much better win than probably was in September, right? Because it was a 3-point game to a 3-point win to a non-conference game, but you don't realize how good Ashton Jency's going to be, how good Boise State's going to be. It's actually a really good non-conference win now.
It is. It really is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, you know, this is, like you said, it's a tested team, Adam. You know, 32-31. Dan Lanning has been an excellent coach. And we talked about Dan Lanning's decision about the, you know, taking the intentional penalty against Ohio State to bleed the clock. They've pulled the right strings when it mattered. They crushed Illinois 38-9, go into Michigan, win that game by 21. And, you know, we talked about the Wisconsin game where it's 16-13, but I think for the back half of the season, they've kind of really been rolling. This is probably, I don't think I should say probably, outside of the Ohio State game, and probably the best team that Penn State's going to face all year. Makes sense that they're in the Big Ten title game.
They've earned it.
So we talked about, the quarterback play a little bit. The other guy, obviously, is the running back, Jordan James, over 200 touches this year, just shy of 1,200 yards, just about 6 yards a carry, 13 touchdowns. He's third in rushing yards in the Big Ten. He's 20th in rushing yards in college football. And guys, when I was, you know, even just watching the highlights of him, and when you Twitter search somebody and what comes up, this dude just runs people over. Yeah. Like, he is willing to lower the shoulder, lower the boom, and he is not afraid of contact at all. To have 1,200 yards and to be as physical as he is, and to be as, you know, he's shifty. He can make guys miss, but he is not afraid of contact. This is a really good running back that Penn State's going to face.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I know we're like super focused on, you know, Dillon Gabriel and the quarterback play and the D-line and how that's going to play out, but man, Jordan James is a problem. This dude's he's one of them cats, you know, he one of them ones. I mean, he's got speed, like you said, he can make you miss in open space, and he's got that Big Ten mentality where he ain't afraid of them pass hitting. So, you know, this is a dude that we're gonna have to slow down, because if we can't slow down Oregon's run game, it'll be a long day. Yeah. There ain't no other way to put it. And I know that's like typical, you know, fundamentals of defense and things of that nature to stop the run first. But in this case, if they have the run game, that means they'll have everything, and that's just how it'll play out. So this is not a one-dimensional offense.
Man, you guys are so right. You look at the Ohio State game, ran for 115 yards. The Michigan game ran for 117. Wisconsin, 121 yards. So this dude, in big games, he comes up. He balls. So I couldn't agree more. It's got to be a big emphasis to at least try to slow him down, because to your point, Jason, if they got all their tools going, it could be a long day.
So I think the one thing with the run game specifically, like Penn State has faced some good running backs this year in Woody Marks and Tawi Walker, and of course Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins for Ohio State. I wonder, and Jason, you bring it up, like if you don't stop that run game, it's going to be an open game for Oregon.
Avalanche.
It feels to me that this is probably the most complete offense that they've played, and I know Ohio State won 10 games. Will Howard has been a good quarterback this year. Will Howard doesn't worry me the way that a Dillon Gabriel does. And so if you put the two together, and then of course Ohio State had the offensive line injuries at the time, and they ended up winning the game. But if you put the two things together with James as the lead back and Dillon Gabriel's ability to extend plays, make plays with his arms and his leg, this seems to be the most complete team that Penn State has faced this year. And that to me is where that trouble would potentially come in, because I think, if you're able to stop the run against like a Tawi Walker or against the Woody Marks, you can rein in those type of quarterbacks. And I think that Miller Moss had a decent year, but you see now he's going to transfer out of USC. It seems like. So this to me is like that complete, best offense that they've probably faced. And again, no reason, no questioning as to why it's in the Big Ten title game.
Yeah, and I think about everything we just spoke about with this offense. I think that makes it that much more important for our offense to control the ball this game. If we keep those guys off the field, Kaytron and Nick can sustain 10 play drives, 12 play drives, and limit the time that this offense, the Oregon offense, is on the field. That only helps us, because you guys are starting to make me nervous. The more I hear about this Oregon offense, I'm like, man, this is going to be a tall time. We got the horses, man. But I think if our guys can control the ball a little bit, that'll help us a little bit.
I mean, we saw them against Ohio State, and that game was a bit of a shootout. And Ohio State has a solid defense. I like Ohio State's defense is trash, and they really found a lot of success. And I think when I compare Will Howard to a Dillon Gabriel, I look at Dillon and he's more clutch. I mean, obviously he's a better athlete than Will Howard, and his legs can scare you some. But Dillon Gabriel is one of those quarterbacks that, he comes alive in the big moments. He comes alive in clutch moments. He comes alive in those end of games, gotta have it situations. And that's what this game is going to come down to, is on those plays, on those critical moments of the game, who ends up having more plays fall their way than the other team does. I think it's going to be one of those kind of games. It's going to be a tight game, like for real. This one's going to come down all the way down to the wire. It's everything you would possibly want and imagine. The best two teams out of a conference. It's all that you want in a game that's as big as this one, truly.
So we've talked a lot about this Oregon team and their front four, and their front seven is actually very, very good. Pass defensive wise, they are eighth in college football in yards per game, 171. So I want to ask you guys this. My guess would be they are going to single out Tyler Warren this week, much like most teams defensively should try to do. Some have had success, but most have floundered in that opportunity. If Tyler Warren does get bracketed or does get double teamed or does kind of get maybe taken out of the game plan a little bit early, I know we say this a lot. This to me will fall on the shoulders of Penn State's run game. And Adam, you brought up controlling tempo, controlling the clock. And so for me, it feels like, Nick Singleton had an excellent game against Maryland, has had an excellent season. Kaytron Allen, yardage wise and yards per carry wise, wasn't as efficient against Maryland. But when those two guys are clicking, we've talked about this plenty, it's one of the more dangerous running back duos in the country. To me, guys, it feels like if you control tempo, the way you do that is, 10 play drives, 12 play drives, and you trust your run game and you trust your Tyler Warren game, and you go from there.
Yeah, you said it best, bro. Like, if the run game is not going for us, it'll be a long day, because, like I said, Dan Lanning's not gonna allow Tyler Warren to beat our defense straight up. They're gonna do their. I mean, it's hard to completely take a tight end out of the game just because a tight end affects so many parts of the game, but they're gonna do their best to limit Tyler Warren in this game. if our run game isn't going, which receiver at this point in the season are you going to sit here and tell me, well, it'll be this guy or it'll be that guy? We've been talking for the past 3-4 weeks, like, hey, it would be great if a guy could step up and have a really strong showing of the next 3-4 games leading up to the playoffs and at the Big Ten championship game. So we feel really, really good about Drew having one guy out there that is the guy. We are still at the end of the season at the exact same place we were at the beginning of the season of not truly knowing which guy is going to be the guy that can take over for us at that position. And I think that's what scares me the most about this game, because I think that is a glaring missing element that we do not have that Oregon clearly does have.
Yeah. I think, the guys have shown flashes a little bit, but there just has been a lack of consistency throughout the season. But you know what? This is what Julian Fleming, he's coming out. This is it. He's waited all season. This is game. He comes out and shines for us.
Hey, 2016, Saeed Blacknell now. Don't play around. Saeed wasn't having some crazy All-American year. And then Big Ten championship came around. Saeed goes off for almost 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yep. So you never know. And it'd be those type of games where guys that kind of come out of the woodworks that you didn't know were really going to hurt you like that just step up because you weren't thinking about them crazy. So that is absolutely a possibility. And Omari Evans coming out, or Wallace having a 120, 130-yard game, would be awesome for us.
Yeah.
Well, you guys talked last week, and I didn't say it to you guys because I was letting you roll. I thought you both were crazy when you said that Michigan was going to give Ohio State a game. It was like a 20.5-point line. I thought Ohio State was going to roll. They had everything going for them. Michigan probably will, and we'll talk more about that in just a bit. But you guys were right. You were onto it. So, hey, let's make it 2 for 2. Adam, you get on the you can get up on the soapbox a little bit and preach on next week when this happens. So I hope you're right. I do. We don't usually do a lot of predictions on this show. I'm not going to ask you guys for predictions because it's not something that we do. But I'm going to ask you this. Heading into the game, we're a couple days out. What's your confidence level in that Penn State can win this game?
I think it's a true 50-50. I mean, Penn State has shown that they can play with anybody. I know it's not like I'm sitting here and think that they can in any way go out there and get their ass whooped. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a close game. It's like I said, it's going to come down to the critical moments, the gotta have it moments. Who wins the better share of that handful of plays? That is what this game is going to come down to. So it's truly a toss-up, in my opinion. I think it's obvious that these teams match up really well. I think that element that we just spoke about is missing on our side. Oregon's not missing it, and we'll see how that plays out in a game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been one team in college football this year that looks unbeatable. As they say, any given Sunday, any given Saturday, this team, depending on which version of these teams comes out, it could go either way. But I completely agree. I think it's 50-50. But I'm so confident that these guys are going to be able to hold their own out there, and we just let the chips fall where they may. I think I think Jason already mentioned it. It's probably going to come down to 1 or 2 or 3 plays that are the deciding factor in this game, and you just hope those big plays are made by the guys in white on Saturday.
27-24 PSU.
Oh, he did make a prediction.
Hey, his last prediction, that last prediction he made, I don't know what game was that?
Yeah, what game was that? Wisconsin?
I think it was Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 27-24 Penn State. Could be an OT game. It might be an OT game.
Wow.
It might be an OT game.
Yeah, so to me, the lower scoring that this game is, the more it swings in Penn State's favor.
Correct.
I think because and don't get me wrong, that's not a knock on Oregon's defense. I think they are an incredible defense, but I think if Oregon's getting up into their average season score, 31, 34, 35, 37, I'm not so sure Penn State's going to have the capability of keeping up in that capacity. I think if this is a lower scoring game, I feel good about Penn State's chances. The more points that get scored, unless you end up with a true shootout, which I don't anticipate, I would worry about Oregon being able to score in bunches more than Penn State.
Yeah, even in the games that Penn State has scored 30 plus or 35 plus points. I mean, it wasn't like this crazy rack of explosive plays. We're just hitting posts. Then we hit Tyler in the over 70 yards touchdown. That it wasn't really those type of looking drives. It was more so like, man, we might have had 10, 12 drives, and on 6 or 7 of those drives, we put together some really good scoring drives. Oregon's scoring looks a bit different like that. They have a whole lot of sprinkles of 3, 4 plays, 80 yards, touchdown, 2 plays. 2 plays, 65 yards. Like they have that, So it'll just. I just think the way time of possession goes and the way the ebbs and flows of the game goes, I just don't see Penn State being able to match that level of explosiveness if Oregon is having that type of success.
Yeah. And we've been plagued with some slow starts this year, so I'll just keep my fingers crossed that the boys come out with the foot on the gas, because I don't think if we get down by 10, 14 points, then that's a hard road to come back from. But if we can keep within the touchdown, if we're up, but our guys got to come out firing.
Got to come out like Ohio State and freaking finish it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we need.
10-0 real quick, right in the blink of an eye. Field goal. And to me, the pick 6 against Ohio State was great. It's an electric dynamite play. We've talked about those type of plays defensively before. What was more impressive to me in that sequence of events was that opening drive, because they were efficient. They knew where they wanted to go with the ball, and it only ended up in 3 points, which you would have loved a touchdown on the opening drive, but it was a effective, efficient drive for Penn State that I felt like they really were the leader on that drive. They weren't just taking what Ohio State was giving them. They were dictating those plays. And so if you get that type of drive to start the game, within your first couple possessions, I think it'll calm the nerves of a lot of people.
Yep, absolutely. That's what you want to do in football. You want to dictate.
All right, guys, we're going to get into the college football playoff landscape, and we'll talk about one head coach in particular who continues to lose to his rival. We're doing a little bit backwards today. We'll talk about Ohio State and Michigan in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. And, of course, that is up next. We're going to tell you about our friends over at Empire. We're talking about jingles. You know all about the Empire Today jingle, right? But do you know about Empire's quality customer service and their commitment to that customer service? Listen, when you're shopping for flooring or carpeting or whatever the case may be, heading over to a big box store can be difficult. There's thousands of samples out on the floor. There's a whole bunch of people that are just looking to sell you and get their money and get their commission and get you out the door. That's not Empire's goal. What Empire wants to do is simplify the process for you. And not only do they want to sell you your flooring or your carpeting now, but they want you to be a repeat customer for life. And how do you become a repeat customer? Well, you have to like the people that you're buying the product from. And that's exactly why Empire, it really kind of commands the customer service game. And not only that, but you can do it online. And so sometimes you just can't get to the store. You have to use the online shopping today. And yes, it can become a little bit impersonal, but not with Empire, because they're going to continue to help you every step of the way. And one of the great tools to do that is with their virtual floor designer. It's a great way to see how your new home will look, or your new floor will look in your home in any space. All you have to do is take a picture of the room that you're in, upload it, and you'll see what the floor looks like in that space. So listen, they pride themselves in the convenient shop at home experience, especially when they still are able to do it online. They help customers shop for floors when they use their floors. So it is exactly what you're going to see on whether you do it online or you do it in person. The floor that you buy is exactly what you're going to see in the store or in your home, I should say. And they service their own warranty. So if you do have any issues, probably won't. But if you do, you don't have to worry about tracking down a manufacturer's phone number. You just get back on the phone with Empire. They'll come out and they will help you with your warranties. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, and all listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions do apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for more details. And we've been doing this for a while now. I hope you have the opportunity to jump in on it. I'm going to flash you the graphic here. Well, that's not the right graphic, so do your job, Tyler, probably properly. And because that discount was good. That was $48 for a year. How about this? It's a better discount. $36 to become a diehard, but you only have a couple hours left. It ends at 8 o'clock tonight. We extended 36 hours to over 48 hours, so you have an opportunity to become a diehard at the best price possible. And what you get with a diehard is incredible premium written content that you can't find anywhere else. And of course, you're going to get access to all of our events. You get 20% off all of our paid events. You'll get access to our Discord, which is called the PHLY Lounge, where you can talk to all of our writers, our show hosts, our contributors. You'll get a great t-shirt when you sign up, and you'll get dope merch throughout the course of the year, where you get the first chance at some of this dope merch throughout the year. And if you want to hit the road with us, coming up in January, it's right around the corner, just over a month away. The PHLY Flyers Sweet Takeover in January. I don't think the Flyers are going to be playing in July. January 11th, you'll get the chance to watch the Flyers take on the Ducks from a suite in the Wells Fargo Center. You'll get sweet tickets, food and drink all night, hang out with the PHLY crew, which includes, of course, Bill, Charlie, Kelly, JP, and you'll get to hang out with them throughout the game. So tickets are going fast, so head on over to allphly.com/events to get started, and head on over to allphly.com to get in on this great deal, because you only have a few hours left to become a diehard at the price point of $36 per year. Can't beat it. Welcome back to the All Nittany Lion Podcast here on PHLY. Tyler Zulli, Adam Telefero, Jason Kabinda. As we kind of wrap up the conversation about Oregon, we're going to work backwards a little bit today and take a look back at the Ohio State and Michigan game that was. Guys, Ohio State, for the fourth consecutive year, falls to Michigan. This time they lose this game 13-10. With the loss, they fall to 10-2. Of course, they miss out on the Big Ten championship game, and they will miss out on an opportunity to have a first-round bye in the college football playoff. So, guys, I wanted to ask you, to me, this seemed like the definitive worst Michigan team we've seen in quite some time. Objectively speaking, statistically, they were down. They were 6-5 heading into the game. Really no quarterback play to speak of. They've always been a run-heavy team, but this year, without J.J. McCarthy, really no run game or really no quarterback play to speak of. So I want to ask you guys, you both were on this one. You said Michigan was going to not only give them a game, but you thought they could win this game. What is it about Michigan for Ohio State that caused such problems when these two teams meet up?
I mean, when I watched this game, at least this game specifically, there were just so many mistakes. I mean, just really careless mistakes. I thought the game overall was really sloppy. And we talk about momentum and stuff. All Michigan wanted to do, and you could tell by the game plan of the game, is just keep it close. They felt like if we could just keep this close all the way going into the fourth quarter, that in the end, we'll make that last play or two that ends up winning us this game. And I think in Sharon's press conference after the game, he said that you're just like, man, it was 10-10 in that fourth quarter, and we knew we had them. And you could just tell that that's how that game played out. And you talk about the mounting pressure, the fact that they've lost the last 4 times now. Like, there's a mounting pressure that comes from that. There's a boogeyman. There's an elephant in the room when it comes to that kind of thing. The same way there's an elephant in the room for Oregon and being undefeated this entire year. Not fully – yeah, they've been tested, but they haven't gone through adversity of losing. I think when Penn State plays this game, they're playing with house money. They're playing with nothing to lose. They lose this game, okay, it's the playoffs. We're on our way to the national championship. That's the mindset. So I just think all of that pressure, it just – they couldn't hold up, and they didn't play well at the end of the day. And we know how important it is at this time of the year to play well. And they didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, from the Michigan standpoint, and we talked about the mental side of the game as opposed to the physical side of football. Those guys go in there like we beat these guys 3 years in a row. Like, we're not scared. We're not scared of Ohio State. Like, we got these guys. So it doesn't matter what the record. We always say, with these rivalry games, the records go out the window. It's like, hey, you guys got to show us that you could beat us. And I give Michigan so much credit. But the thing, and the whole, Joel Klatt on the Fox broadcast was saying it the entire game, like, what were they doing from a play calling perspective? You got the best wide receivers in the game, and you're trying to run the ball and show how physical you are. Like, man, utilize those dogs that you got on the outside. And, Michigan's down their best corner. You're running the ball trying to, prove a point that you're a physical team. I was dumbfounded by the play calling from Ohio State the entire game.
It was very interesting, even from the lack of variety of the types of runs that they were running. I mean, like, okay, you want to lean on the run game, you that's where you want to start your offensive game plan. I mean, but we're just running inside zone dives right up the middle over and over. I mean, it was just It was very, very ugly to watch. You have Jeremiah Smith out there, freshman of the year wide receiver, and we're just not giving the guy targets. Had me dumbfounded, bro.
Yeah, he did score their only touchdown, but 5 catches for 35 yards. It just seemed like a really poor use of one of the best receivers in the Big Ten. And then you bring up the run game, right? You guys know I've talked about Quinshon Judkins for basically the whole season, and I loved him at Ole Miss, and it really like pained me when he transferred to Ohio State because it was like, dang, man, now they've got 2 really good running backs, and they do a little bit of different things. Judkins is a guy who makes people miss in space. He's not afraid of contact, but he like makes people miss in space. He's electric. He's elusive. And you're right. It just felt like it was kind of like banging your head against the brick wall to try to like break through for no reason in particular. And to the fact that I think they ended up rushing for, I want to say it was something like 80 some odd yards. Sorry, 77 yards between the two of them. And their second half possessions, they had 5 of them, no points, 91 yards, 1 pick, a missed field goal, a turnover on downs. It really just seemed to me that it was just stale. They didn't play as the aggressor. They didn't play as the better team. It was, I think you guys hit it right on the head, like just baffling play calling from the offensive standpoint, especially from Chip Kelly, who, you know, whether you like Chip Kelly or not, he is kind of known for his innovation, his kind of forward-thinking play style and play calling. It just seemed really, really just conservative play calling throughout the whole course of the game.
Just a damn shame. Just a damn
shame.
No. Like you're banging your head up against the best defensive tackle in the entire country, Mason Graham. I don't understand. I don't understand. You watch that film, Mason Graham, play after play after play. Manhandling the center. Okay, now we're going to run outside zone. Okay, we can't get him cut off. Mason Graham over the top, TFL. Mason Graham in the backfield, sack. It's like, dude, the dude has been the most consistent defensive tackle in the entire country. Literally number 1. Not number 2, number 3, not number 5, not top 5, not top 10. He's been number 1. He will be the first defensive tackle taken in the NFL draft as a lock. I'm telling you that right now. And we're just running dives straight at the dude. I
think those are the couple of things to get you fired when you clearly have the better talent, but you still can't find a way to win. So I said, them boys better pray they win a game or 2 in these playoffs because it could be a wrap.
And that's actually a really great segue, Adam, to the college football playoff conversation, because I've talked to some, like one of our sales execs at PHLY is from the Ohio area. He's a diehard Ohio State fan, and I was kind of giving him a little crap, messing with him. Hey, what happened? Where did it all go wrong? And he's like, dude, 10 to 11 games out of the year, this team plays free flow. It plays loose. It plays electric, and then they play Michigan, and everything goes out the window. And he goes, now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, what does the college football landscape look like with Ohio State likely still to make the college football playoff? But now Penn State's a definitive lock. If there was any question before, there's no question now. Oregon was in no matter what. So I guess, again, is Indiana the buffer team still at 11-1, or is Ohio State's 2 losses, or do they get, kind of penalized for that loss to Michigan? We talked about it for the last couple of weeks. I don't know how the committee's going to react to this. I don't know how they're going to respond to some of these losses. And again, I don't know how they're going to respond to championship losses. Because, guys, I will say this, and I apologize for rambling. No team in their conference should get penalized for losing a conference championship game that the rest of the teams, and especially the SEC teams, weren't able to play in. So I will, like, if Clemson loses the ACC championship game and they don't get in because of their 3 losses, that's fine. But it shouldn't be because of the fact that they lost the ACC championship game. It should be because of the fact that they just probably don't belong. But, like, if Penn State loses this game on Saturday, or Oregon loses this game on Saturday, these 2 teams should not be penalized for playing in an exclusive game that only 2 teams in their conference get to play.
Yeah, and that's the big question. That's the big discourse around everything about this conversation is, do the championship games still matter? Or are we putting ourselves in a position where we're giving teams the incentive to care less about it? And I think that's a dangerous that's a dangerous line to try to go down. And I don't know what the changes are to make that not be the case. But you look like at an Indiana team, and we talk about the optics of winning and losing. Now, if they went and lost to Ohio State just by one touchdown, it's way easier to say, yeah, they're for sure, and that should be the buffer team. But going out there and losing 31-7, now that's when you start to invite the conversation of, are they legit? Well, Ohio State beat them. Why should they be the ones to be in? So it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the rankings that just came out, with Penn State as a 5 seed, playing Arizona State potentially, then Boise State, that's not a bad road. And if Penn State, something crazy happens if Penn State loses this weekend, I'm going to feel a real type of way if they move Notre Dame up ahead of Penn State because of a Penn State loss. Because that 5th seed is, I mean, hey, it's still great to have a home game, whether you're 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. But that 5th seed, that path is nice if you can stay in that 5 seed. And I'm just worried that if Penn State takes an L in the championship game, they're going to find a way to move Notre Dame up into that 5 seed. And again, we're not supposed to be penalized for a championship effort. But I'm so interested to see how that. Hopefully, we don't have to deal with that issue. But if I'm being honest, I want to see Penn State win that championship and get the number 1 seed. But that 5 seed is gold, man. Like I've been looking at that 5 seed. Even the path as the 1 seed, you still got to play a pretty tough game from, I think it's that 8-9, and it was like Tennessee and somebody. Like, keep me in that 5, man. I'm so conflicted right now because I'm just looking at of course, a lot's going to change, but as it stands right now, that 5 is lovely.
Yeah, and Arizona State's had a nice year. They were picked to finish last in the Big 12. Ends up playing in the Big 12 championship. Kenny Dillingham's done a nice job with them. Cam Skattebo has been an awesome running back. But I will say this, and my only retort to that is winning football games, as you guys mention each and every week, is a difficult task. If you cannot have to win a football game, take one of those games, eliminate it from the conversation. I think that there's merit to it, right? Still, even if the next round might be a more difficult matchup, if you feel a Georgia or a Tennessee or Ohio State perhaps is a more difficult matchup than Boise State, I think you have to take your chances, get guys rested, get guys, feeling good, get a chance to not have to worry about losing in the first round. Instead of 12 teams left, there's 8 teams left. And instead of having to win, 4 games, you got to win 3 games. So, Penn State could be the 8 or 9 seed if the committee really wants to give them crap for a loss to Oregon. If they beat Oregon, there is a conversation to be had that maybe they're the 1 seed. It's crazy how much flexibility there is even heading into the conference championship games.
Yep. I love that we're having this conversation. Like I said, you think about a year ago, it'd be a whole, it'd be boring right now. So it's going to have some excitement around this time of the year.
And the cool thing about it is it feels like March Madness.
It does.
It really does. I there's no team right now that I'm just so, in love with that I just think that they're going to cakewalk. Like there really isn't a team like that. And there's no team that I don't feel like can beat another one. Like these are all going to be good matchups. They're all going to be toss-ups. Like it's exactly the level of competition you'd want for a college football playoff. Truly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it to you this way, and I know that we just gave them a lot of flack for play calling in the Michigan game. Ohio State's going to be a dangerous team in the postseason. Yeah. Very talented defense, good run game, decent quarterback. Like, you're right. It could be any one of these teams, and it's going to be a ton of fun to get to watch over the next couple of weeks. And the beauty of it is, we're going to have games to talk about because whether Penn State wins or loses on Saturday, they will be in the college football playoff. And whether they're playing the game at Beaver Stadium in the next or the first week of the college football playoff or sitting around waiting to see who they play in round 2, we're going to have some more football to talk about. So really, really looking forward to this weekend slate of championship games.
It's going to be a fun weekend.
Absolutely.
Guys, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you to everybody who was able to tune in. Nathan, thank you for our resident Oregon Ducks fan. We appreciate you for checking in. Thanks for hanging out in the chat as well. A interesting, intriguing, fun football game is ahead of us in Indianapolis. on Saturday. And of course, the rest of college football championship slate begins on Friday with some of the lesser conferences like the MAC and Conference USA and things like that. And the Sun Belt, I believe, maybe one of the smaller conferences are also going at it. So we will be back at it on Tuesday. Whether Penn State wins or loses this game, we'll talk about the Big Ten title game. We'll talk about their seeding in the college football playoff, who they may play, all of that and more coming up next Tuesday at 4:00. So for my guys, Adam Teleferro and Jason Kabinda, I'm Tyler Zulli saying thank you so much for hanging out with us here on the All Nittany Lion Podcast. We will check back in with you next Tuesday at 4:00. We hope to talk to you then.